Welcome back. Well, yesterday, the Manufacturers Association Export Promotion Group had its 5th annual general meeting. After the meeting, I caught up with the outgoing chairman, Chief Ede Dafione, and I had a chat with him on some of the impact of the policies, some of the government policies to boost non-oil exports in the country, and how business is for them as exporters.
On the government side, through the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, the most successful of the incentives for the non-oil exporters has been the EEG, or Export Expansion Grant. That policy has recorded visible successes in the increase in non-oil exports. So if you take a graph of the years where the EEG is being paid, and you match it against the non-oil export volumes in those years, you can see a complete relationship between the two. So very successful policy. Unfortunately, for several reasons, the policy has been interrupted significantly since about 2014. The government has recently, going back 4 years, 2018, paid a significant amount of the backlog at that time, and is today, this month, processing an approval to pay a further backlog to bring it up to date at the National Assembly through promissory notes at the moment. The RT200 is a CBN policy that started early this year. Essentially, what the CBN is trying to do is to encourage exporters to sell their foreign exchange locally. That is, to increase the amount of foreign exchange that is available in the local market for importers to use to open letters of credit, etc. By a fringe benefit, that also helps to encourage non-oil export, although the CBN's mission is to increase the inflows. But I should say also that by law, exporters have to repatriate at least 95% of the proceeds of the export anyway. So the exporters are compelled to bring back their proceeds whether or not there's a CBN incentive for that or not.
But some analysts have said that one threat to the RT200 is the gap between the parallel market and the official market when we talk about the pricing of FX in Nigeria.
I wouldn't say discouraging factor. Now, where exporters bring back their proceeds, they have to sell at the official CBN rate. I think that's about 4.20 or something today. Exporters who could bring back their funds and sell on the open market would be able to achieve something closer to 800. Now, going back about 3 or 4 years, exporters were given what the CBN termed unfettered access to the export proceeds. That is, they could sell them to whoever they wanted, however they wanted. It is only in recent years, I think about 3 years now, where the central bank has insisted that the proceeds must be sold through the I&E window at the official rate. And of course, where you are getting 400 odd naira for every dollar compared to nearly 800 that you could have earned if you had our previous unfettered access, that is a discouragement to export. So on the one hand, you have the NEPC trying to encourage non-oil exports. You have the CBN trying to encourage the repatriation of foreign proceeds. But just by giving unfettered access, that would solve both problems. So maybe that is where we should be going back to.
And it seems the talk about the hurdles that exporters have to face when it comes to the number of government agencies and insufficient infrastructure is still on.
Let me address 2 issues on that. The first is the cost of trucking exports into Lagos. So at a time and where the Apapa Road was in a terrible mess, it actually costs the same amount to move goods from Edo Delta State to Lagos as it did from Lagos to the port. And sometimes trailers would be on the road to the port from within Lagos for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. There was a whole batch of trucks that were stuck at one storage terminal within Lagos I had containers there for 4 months. And you're losing money. Your customers are buying for just-in-time stocking. So, where somebody orders their goods and expects them in February, you deliver them in March, April, May, June. And the customer tells you he doesn't want the goods anymore. So that infrastructure, the roads going into the ports, needs to be managed a lot better. The second point on infrastructure I would mention is on the shipping lines. So the shipping lines are charging exporters rates that are not competitive worldwide. And there is nobody who is able to get any competition going that will enable them to bring down their prices. So at a point in time, the cost for stuffing and getting boxes on board is nearly much higher than the actual shipping of the goods. So the exporters are suffering an additional local cost that they should not have to bear. I don't know why those shipping companies would have that high cost, but that has to be regulated so that they can't group together and get a standard high cost where they're all making super profits at the expense of the exporters.
Who should deal with this?
Government. Ministry of Industries would be one. Ports Authority, another. There is Government Kwango that deals with competition and prices also, that could also look into that. I've mentioned that severally over the last year and a half or so, because the costs are now astronomical and out of control.
And are you, as the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, are you talking to the government about this?
The response on the pricing by the shipping companies has not been very good. We tend to deal with the bigger issues. So at the moment, the big elephant in the room is the export expansion grant, which is being processed as we speak. And so once that is through, we will then return back to the smaller issues. But they're all on the table. There's none of these issues that has not been brought to government's attention.
Well, this administration is very big on the ease of doing business. How much impact has that made on exports from your perspective?
At the beginning of the administration, we at MANEC held several interviews with the team from Ease of Doing Business. They had some consultants come in from abroad as well that we worked with. I believe the processes have eased a little bit, but this should be a continuous process. And
as Nigerians head to the polls in a couple of months, what is your expectation as an exporter? What would you like to see coming out from that polls? And what are you looking out for in the candidates as you would vote?
A quick, easy win for exporters would be unfettered access to their foreign exchange. That would increase the flow of dollars into the economy and also increase the ability of the exporters to trade based on the proceeds that they receive and they feed back into the system. Aside from that, infrastructure costs in terms of security and power especially need to be under control. The recent increase in the diesel costs have meant that a lot of factories are now producing only when there's NEPA. And sometimes that could be 1 day out of every 2, which is definitely uneconomic. But where you produce with diesel and you are going to make losses, then there's just no point in switching on the engines.